Spectrovision Radio.
Welcome to Gods, Ghosts, and UFOs. Only the biggest podcast in the universe, where we talk about all the things they said weren't real, and you know who they are, don't you? I know I do. They
Jordan
are my friends, Mallory and Jordan. Yay!
Yes, we told you all those things weren't real, and you're here to tell us
and
they are.
now you're just doing a huge 180.
That's right.
Today,
That's right.
We're going to be talking about psychics solving cold cases, but not really, conscious clouds of plasma, and rodents of unusual size. But first, some business.
So last week, we published 2 bonus episodes, both of which I wanted to mention really quickly. The first is I had promised to produce an audio version of my chat with Claude about how its latest model tried to blackmail engineers in early testing. Well, I did that, and the response was, frankly, shocking to me. That 13-minute bonus episode is so far our most downloaded episode twice over. So, wow, and also okay. I mean, I thought it was cool, but apparently I underestimated something. So anyway, if you haven't listened to it yet, guess go ahead and jump on that bandwagon because everyone else has. The second is that we published our conversation about how Mormon cosmology might be a version of simulation theory, and I think it was great. That one didn't go out on YouTube or our RSS feed, so if you want to see it, it's just for paid subscribers, but anyone who wants to can head over to our Substack and see the first 8 minutes for free. So consider that today's plug to come visit us where we live, godsghostsufos.com, link in the description, as always.
I'm going to kick us off by talking about my favorite thing, which is giant creatures that we never got footage of before, that we have footage of now. Ring the bell, because a new baby has been born. The Sub-Alpine woolly rat. Oh, wow. Everybody, I'm so happy about this. A couple weeks ago, we discussed the colossal squid, which we were able to get footage of for the first time. This squid is the size of a bus, and this rat is the size of a meter stick. We're talking about from tip to tail, 2.5 feet. And like, it's so upsetting. And it feels like so out of an 80s movie, like these rats and gremlins run in the same packs. But what I find delicious about this article was published in the Smithsonian Mag, very legitimate. And we have known about these things since 1989. So my entire life, I'm 35, I was born in 1989. And we just were not able to get footage. So we're aware of them. Scientists were aware of them because they had specimen in museums. But no one has been able to find one, even though they're extremely large, to the tune of their paws are 3 inches. I'm just saying that's the short side of an index card, and that's on a rat. Like the paw of a rat is that big.
You can shake hands with that thing.
I know. So these are in Papua New Guinea, by the way, and they're in the highlands of Papua New Guinea. And the way that we have this footage is because there was a biologist out of the Czech Academy of Sciences and the University of South Bohemia who explored the highlands, and with the help of the indigenous tribes, there were several indigenous tribes that he worked with. They helped him find and locate these creatures and identify them. He was there for 6 months, and this was sort of the most exciting discovery. He also found 61 other species, not new species, but he was able to identify them. And the reason that this footage, that these big baby boys are so hard to find, is because they're, one, nocturnal, and because they live at such a high elevation, between 10,500 feet and 12,140 feet above sea level. So what I love about this is that if you're a person who thinks cryptids are just a big bag of garbage, just a big bag of hullabaloo and baloney, this is a really nice data point to say that sometimes even very large creatures are difficult to find or maybe don't want to be found, and we are finding them. And I think, honestly, in both cases, I am just delighted that we on this podcast continue to add to the data points of, even just over the past month and a half, 2 very large things that we were not able to actually properly observe. So, and it's not to say, though, oh, that means that everything is real. No, but everything should stay pretty open. I think we should stay ready.
So, you know how sometimes you don't see things that you don't want to see. Like if you don't want to see something, you won't see it. I'm just wondering if maybe one of the reasons that we don't have footage of a giant hairy rat is because we didn't ever really want to get footage of it.
I know.
Like we knew they existed, but we were like, let's not go out looking for
I'm going
footage.
with the theory that the larger the rodent is, the more proximal it becomes to capybara in terms of temperament. That's just what I really need, as opposed to like a 3-foot rat being an asshole. Because it would be bad, like bad. But I'm instead going to say that it's sort of like extra adorable and snuggy, and loves belly rubs.
But also, it probably has a tail that's as thick as your arm.
Oh, I didn't
it's a
get
rat,
tail thickness
it's a
from the
rat
article.
Tail thickness.
Ooh. Yeah. Well, and these aren't rats that you'd find in a subway. These are
God forbid.
tropical mountain rats. Actually, I hadn't learned this term, but they think that they might be as large as they are because of something called insular gigantism, which is a biological phenomenon where island creatures evolved to become larger than the ones on the mainland. Had no idea that that was a thing.
Okay, this is further proof of Darwin's theory of the origin of species. That is to say, that isolated populations speciate. I don't know if it's Darwin who said that, but certainly Stephen Jay Gould did. So when you have like a regular rat that ends up in Papua New Guinea and it decides that its greatest home is up, it will start to become a different form. It will assume at some point a different form. And this happens all the time.
This is about the conversation that biological species are constantly having with the environments in which they live. So
yes.
It's not just mutations of genes. It's the way that the species itself wants to fit to the environment that it's part of. And so there must be some sort of better fitting going on for a rat that lives at those kinds of altitudes.
More
to
fur.
Become really large. Yeah, certainly more fur.
Lots more fur.
Yes.
But then also, probably larger for similar reasons, actually, for the retaining. I wanted to say retenance, but that's probably not. Retention is probably the word that I'm looking for the retention of body heat. And I don't want to meet one, but I'm glad they exist.
Right?
Mostly because, when I was a kid watching The Princess Bride, who am I fooling? When I watch The Princess Bride every year, I think, man, I really hope there are rodents that big, and it turns out there are.
There are. Splinter exists, everybody. And I also like the idea, too, that rats, like a gas, will grow to fit their container.
I found this article because of its, eye-catching title in an online publication called Money Control. So I don't know. And the title is Psychic Helps Solve 1973 Case, Predicts Correct Location of Missing U.S. Students' Remains, miracle. That's misleading. It just makes me so, I found it upsetting. So I did just a tiny bit of digging, and although they did not make up information, that title is not actually what happened. So I'll try to give you the brief overview. And this happened in Utah in 1973. On October 12, 1973, Douglas Brick walked out of his dorm at the U and vanished. And they just couldn't find him. It became a cold case. It turns out that results from an out-of-state lab that specializes in extracting DNA from weathered bones confirmed last week that they found his skull. The reason they did, this is a series of unlikely events that happened. In 2022, University police hired a crime data analyst who, in her work with Utah Statewide Information and Analysis Center, discovered that they had a cold case that had been lost for almost 20 years. So Major Heather Sturzenegger decided to lead that case. And this is tough. They didn't have any information at all. The only thing that they had at their disposal was the fact that that Douglas Brick's sister had called in 2018 and was like, what's going on? What's going on with this case? And so they went and got a cheek swab of his sister, and nothing matched. And so they were up a stump. But she also gave them the contact information for his out-of-state girlfriend at the time. She wasn't really able to help. Then, this is fascinating, in 2022, the investigator, Sturzenegger, went with her daughter to a doctor's appointment and was engaged in small talk with the doctor, Stephen Warren. They'd never met. And she told him what she does for work, and he goes, "Oh, that's weird. When I was a student at the U, my roommate went missing." And that guy was this man's roommate in college, and he was the one that called it in. He's the one that found the guy's car. So that was amazing. Now, hunters found the guy's skull fragments, and then they ran the check on the DNA, and they said, "We've got it," and he was recovered. A psychic had nothing to do with it. So you wonder why that title is in it at all. And this is actually really interesting to me. At the time, in 1973, Brick's mother, Donna, wrote an entry in her journal. She was at a department store in Salt Lake City, and she had a chance encounter with a store clerk who told her he was psychic. And she said, "Maybe you can tell me what happened to my son." And the store clerk said, "Yes. He went to the foothills above the U. He was thinking about ending his life. He became afraid because it was getting dark, and he slipped and he fell. And he really wants you to find him." And she wrote, these details really stuck out to me. Where the skull was located is extremely steep and loose on both sides. So that's where it was found, near the summit of Black Mountain. So no one acted on the psychic's reading, but she memorialized it in her journal, and people were like, these are details that no one would have known. But it did not help find the body, and it did not help solve the case. Now, the thing is that we know that psychics have helped solve murder cases many, 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 many times, right? There's many examples that can be found of psychics giving direct aid in locating bodies, at which point they usually become suspects, and helping people solve cases. I just found one website, which is from the UK, which has an article titled "How Psychics and Mediums Can Help Solve Crimes," and they go over upwards of a dozen cases in the UK, and any cursory search is going to provide further substantiated evidence of this happening.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you don't need to convince me, or probably, frankly, our audience, but it is almost just as a courtesy for, the sort of like apology on behalf of this article. Like, if you were looking for a good case and now you've got a little bit of a hankering for one, well, sorry. But here's the thing is here's something to sate your appetite.
Mal says this all the time. It's like, this is what we have to deal with. That is to say, there's so much obfuscation and ornamentation and misdirection, because these phenomena are still sort of seen as carnival sideshows. And so it is a kind of clickbait. And so it's our job to kind of drill down. And if this gives us an opportunity to talk about actual cases that have been helped by psychics, then it came in a timely manner. But I was annoyed for a minute.
The word that comes up for me is manipulation. I think that if you're needing to manipulate in order to help people draw a more general conclusion, say about mediums or about spiritual information or remote viewing or whatever it is, I think that manipulation will always turn people's stomachs. And that's being in resistance to actual reality is very different than saying, here are the facts and draw your own conclusions and figure out what to do. It's just, this area is just as rife with manipulation as the more materialistic science areas, and then obviously like general news. It's like it's frustrating because we do have to sort through it, because of course there are many people whose ideas that there basically is no spiritual universe are confirmed when they read an article like that, and that's annoying.
I think it's our job to point those out whenever we see them, whenever we personally run across them, to point them out and to be vocally annoyed by it.
I don't know that the original article actually said the psychic helped them solve the case. It more did not lay out all those details and just talked about the encounter that his mom had.
All right, well, then mystery
to edit
solved. I
that.
know how the headline got written. Somebody put the article into one of these LLM AIs and said, can you give me some good clickbaity headlines for this? And that was one of them, and they picked that one. That's how it happened.
Damn you.
That's 100% how it
It's
happened.
literally just the headline is the problem,
Yeah.
and the rest
Just
is
the
just
headline.
perfectly
Yeah.
fine.
But people don't read. People, we know that people read headlines. They don't read anything else.
Jordan's going to close with the banger, though.
That's right.
Here we go.
You guys left me with the best one today. I'm so stoked. All right. Imagine you're in a space station about 200 miles above the surface of the Earth. Down below, you can see giant glowing objects, some as big as half a mile across, and they're moving around like they mean it. They're speeding up, slowing down, making sharp turns, interacting with each other like schools of fish. According to a groundbreaking 2024 study published in the Journal of Modern Physics, these things you're looking at might be an actual form of life, maybe even one of the first. An international team of scientists analyzed footage from 10 different NASA space shuttle missions and discovered what they're calling, quote, extraterrestrial electromagnetic plasmas in Earth's atmosphere. These plasma entities exhibit what the researchers describe as hunter-predatory behavior, actively seeking out and colliding with other plasmas, leaving glowing trails in their wake. They are attracted to sources of electromagnetic energy, doing things like congregating around electrified satellites and diving into thunderstorms like cosmic surfers riding lightning. The researchers behind this paper suggested that these balls of plasma might represent a, quote, fourth domain of life. Neither plant or animal nor bacteria, but something totally different. They even go so far as to wonder whether these structures could somehow incorporate space dust and organic compounds to potentially develop RNA-like properties, which might make them a bridge between non-living matter and biological life. Regardless, this is the kind of thing that could hugely impact our understanding of things like the UFO sightings. So many reported UFOs, after all, are what look like balls of plasma. And I know many people who have encountered them are convinced that they are conscious. Some people have gone so far as to say that plasma itself is a medium of consciousness. Is this evidence of that? One of my favorite sci-fi series is what's known as the Hyperion Cantos by Dan Simmons. In the fourth book, Rise of Endymion, the main character winds up falling and paragliding through the atmosphere of a gas giant and eventually encounters these giant translucent whale-sized creatures who live there. As I started to read this paper, my very first thought was, wait, are those real? And they're just like floating above our heads. So this is one of the coolest things I've run across. This paper came out last year. I had never heard about it until Tom actually surfaced it. And I said, please let me take this story because
Do you remember what
obsessed.
I texted you when I sent you guys the study? Have I lost my mind? Is this real?
Yes. Is this real?
Yeah. I mean, full disclosure, I just saw this a few days ago. I haven't had the opportunity to deeply research it. I'm going to. I want to know way more about this. I want to read. This paper is huge. I want to read the whole thing. I haven't read the whole thing. I haven't had time to read the whole thing, but I've dug into it as much as I could, as much as I had time for. It's incredible and super surprising and super outside of anything that I was aware existed or could exist. If it's not real, if it's somehow a hoax or somehow faked or somehow, I don't know, if like but nothing that I read seems to suggest to me that there's anything. I mean, it feels like you would expect a paper like this to feel, which is to say relatively dry. This is not looking, I don't think this is
boring
looking
to be fake.
It's too boring to be fake. It's not sensationalized at all. Let's make a clickbait headline for this thing, right? Like
Right.
Giant plasma creatures are floating above Earth's surface and have been for millions of years. Like that's a pretty good headline. And it turns out seems like it's true.
Honestly, I'm decently speechless. Like when I read it, I felt very similarly like this can't be real, but also wanted it to be real. So I have to always ride that wave. I honestly am just hoping that this continues to unfold. I feel insane. I feel so frustrated that this isn't featured prominently, constantly in the news. Like, why is Smithsonian publishing an article about a giant rat instead of this? Because it feels like giant rats on an island where not that many people live doesn't matter as much as like
Plasma
sentient
consciousness.
plasma. Yes.
Plasma storm diving.
kilometer-sized plasma whales in our atmosphere.
It sounds like the cover of a Yes album from the 70s. I'm gonna give people access to the study as well as helpful murder psychics in the supplemental, which I'll crank out a day or two after this episode drops. So, because I know that people will want to read, and so we will do that. Another reason to send people to Substack, because I'm like you, Jordan. I want to read the whole thing and then go like, who else has talked about this? What's the commentary? Did anybody follow up on it? You know, and then if they're studying data from the space shuttle, then we should also have access to that visual
we should
data.
be able to see this stuff. Like whatever they were looking at, we should be able to see these images and this data.
We will run those rabbits. I guarantee it, because it feels like a little bit of a big deal. Just you know what I mean? Just a
literal big deal.
How you doing, Mal?
I'm looking at the photos. Some of them.
Oh, of our plasma friends?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No?
Sorry, my face doesn't hide anything. It's just like, I don't understand this photo. Some of them are really blurry. But
like a good
that's
cryptid photo.
Famous last words.
That's always very frustrating. What were you going to say, Tom?
You asked me in the text thread, you said, do you think this is what you saw? Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, they weren't that big. They weren't very big at all. But they looked way more like plasma. They didn't have a color. They were amorphous, and they seemed luminous to me. They did not appear to be, nuts and bolts craft.
Right. In this article, one of the NASA commanders, he's stated, the best way I can describe it is as some kind of reflective cloth, some type of metallic-looking type of cloth, a structure which is definitely not rigid. It's a solid metal structure.
Oh, that's so...
it's not a solid...
Yeah.
That's my bad. It's not a solid metal...
Right.
One more time. It's not a solid metal structure.
I am not a solid mental structure.
I am not, nor have I ever been, a solid mental structure.
That's just so... I love being in awe. I love that the world will go like, you thought you had me figured? No, here,
I know.
Giant rat.
Well, okay. I want to pitch an idea about, based on this paper and all the stories that I've heard about people encountering balls of plasma that they swear are conscious. It doesn't seem too far-fetched to me to think if there is an ecosystem of biological creatures of varying sizes and shapes and types and whatever, could it not stand to reason that there is a sort of similar array of plasmic creatures of varying shapes and sizes and levels and types and degrees of intelligence or consciousness or personality? So maybe there are such a thing as like giant sea creatures of the air, or like air creatures, plasma creatures, the way that there are giant whales in the ocean. There are giant plasma creatures in the air, and also in the ocean there's lots of little tiny fish that dart around, and maybe there's lots of little tiny plasma things that dart around, and maybe there are super intelligent, very full of personality balls of plasma that follow people around and have conversations with them. And I don't know, I'm not saying I know any of this stuff, but maybe there is this whole other branch of life and awareness and vitality that is enfleshed with plasma.
I immediately think of ball lightning, what people call ball lightning. I think of will-o'-the-wisps. Did I ever tell you guys about the Brown Mountain Lights?
Mm-mm.
No.
I grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, and in the Appalachian chain, which is unutterably old, older than trees, there's a mountain called Brown Mountain, which for a long time is famous for its lights, which people have tried to explain away as the reflections of car headlights, but the indigenous people were talking about this. One night when I was in high school, me and my brothers and a couple of friends drove to a lookout point about a mile away from the mountain in the fall and watched them for about an hour. And it was extraordinary. They were all kind of different colors. They were balls maybe about the size of a basketball. One appeared and then more would sort of wink in. They would arc up into the air like a bottle rocket. They would squiggle. They moved independently of each other. And I remember distinctly, and I will until I am no longer of the earth, looking through binoculars at a green one as it threaded its way through young trees, and I could see either the tree was in front of it or behind it as it went in and around, and I could see its light reflected on the tree trunks. And it wasn't like I wasn't frightened, I wasn't exercised in any way. I just was witnessing something beautiful and content for it to be that. And many, many other people have seen the Brown Mountain Lights. And then what I saw myself outside of this office window earlier this year or late last year, I'm inclined to believe what you're talking about.
It makes a lot of sense to me in the way that I understand or have been trying to comprehend what the universe is and how unfathomable it is in its diversity and depth, but also how there are certain patterns. Like life follows patterns of diversity. It would make sense to me that if there's one type that there would be more. And also, I'm trying to get my head around how we interact with these things or the limited way in which we could interact with them. So it's important to consider, to try to bring this down to a sort of materialistic way to what we understand about science. Like we know that our eyes are only capable of seeing like 0.4% or something of the spectrum of light or something. So when you're looking at something, you're only seeing this tiny, tiny, tiny sliver of what it is on just the electromagnetic spectrum. So, and if we're talking about plasma, we're talking about something that is presumably occupying a fairly large swath of the electromagnetic spectrum compared with what we can see. So in a very real sense, you're only seeing the barest hint of a shadow of these things. Like no matter what you're looking at, like no matter what it is, you're only seeing a tiny, tiny, tiny part of what it actually is. And also, we are just not like biologically fitted to interact with or witness or in any way this type of life. So if it is a type of life, which at this point I'm happy for the sake of argument to just say that it is, and vice versa, like how how fitted would a being made of plasma be to interact with or see or be aware of us at all? We seem to definitely exist and operate on different planes of experience.
This paper, I only read the intro the other day, and the rest of it is just chock full of crazy. Further, when subject to electron depletion, dusty plasmas may engage in charge cannibalism, which is the hunter-predatory behavior. In addition, following collisions and cannibalism, bound electrons are emitted and scattered after impact, possibly producing glowing plasma dust trails as documented. There's like all kinds of stuff in here that's so incredible. And Tom, so what you were talking about with the brown lights.
Brown Mountain Lights.
You referred to it as ball lightning, or is that a separate thing?
I did not. People have tried to explain them away since the 20s.
Okay.
There are reports of them going back by white people back into the 1850s. So it's not car headlights. But honestly, I've never heard any reasonable explanation for them. And they're a thing. People know that they're a thing.
Right.
And probably are abundant and active 98 to 9.9% of the time without anyone being aware of them at all. Are there plasma entities drifting around and doing their thing, interacting with each other in broad daylight out just in your yard or on the street? You would never know because you wouldn't be able to see them.
How many times have we read an article where someone's like, oh, wow, holy smoke, we found this new species in a part of the ocean that should not contain any life. Look at there, look at that. Look at that little guy. And these things, and we're constantly surprised by by life, which is, maybe we should stop being surprised. And then these things are what, in the thermosphere?
Yeah.
So, okay, fine. If you can make a go of it in the thermosphere, you're not going to have a lot of competition. You can just play and dive and cannibalize to your heart's content. Yes. If you don't have a heart.
Another line. In the upper atmosphere of Earth, there are plasmas that hunt, those that appear to simply hover in place, floaters, and those that sink into the lower atmosphere to graze on and scavenge electromagnetic energy released within thunderstorms. It's like all kinds of different behaviors that would obviously be extremely hard to capture. If it's hard to find the rat, it's hard to find the plasma. It's so exciting.
It's a wonderful world, and it keeps revealing its wonders to us.
Are we going to do a follow-up on this, everybody? Can we keep talking about this paper?
If we find supplemental material, we will.
I want more material.
Yeah,
I want more material.
And I
want to know who is out there shooting cameras up into the thermosphere or higher just to look at these things.
The fact that they are comparing it to life or even basically saying that it is living because it's engaging in these apparently conscious behaviors is extraordinary to me. It's quite a claim in a scientific paper. It's one thing to go like, it appears that, but they appear to be going farther than that. So there's a lot of meat, I would assume, on the bones of this thing.
It is. It's so good.
It's so good and boring and long.
Genuinely, like, all these great direct quotes, including, like, "This is Houston. Say again, 7. We have a bogey at 10 o'clock." And it's like they're talking about seeing kind of what you described, Tom. They're talking about, like, multiple structures that look like they're floating. And what are the chances? I'm sorry. Like, we got all of this because I'm freaking out. But what are the chances that we would start this podcast and Tom would say one of these? What? The simulation has obvious cracks. It's
you think about what
me.
are the chances, and then you go like, now it's inevitable, you know?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because, any retrovision is always 2020. I don't know, dude. I just like, we talked briefly at some point, very early days, about synchronicities and what that is, and, non-causal, the difference between synchronicity and coincidence. I have experienced synchronicities. We should talk more about it at some point, and I've always viewed them as a sign that you're in your groove. So if we can call this a synchronicity, that's good. I take heart from that.
I hear what you're saying, that if it feels magical, then it's probably because you're on the right track. The plasma has blessed this pod.
Just to be clear,
Fellow
for anyone who may feel a little lost, we're referring to Tom's UFO sighting that we covered in the very first episode of our show. So if you want to hear that story of Tom's account, that's where you can find it.
It's not like we started the podcast because you had that experience. You had that experience as we were starting.
Yeah.
And
we'd already recorded. We already
let
recorded
me
like a couple
hasten to
times,
say,
and then you had that experience. And they're like, "Better get back on the mic. We can't finish our pilot without talking about." We decided to talk about UFOs, and then Tom saw some UFOs after we recorded
for the first time in my entire life.
Yeah,
and I've had all kinds of weird shit happen to me. Genuinely weird stuff. Never, ever, ever, never did I see a UAP. Oh, until I start this podcast with you freaks. And then they're like, Hey, Tom. Heard you're doing a podcast about UFOs. Okay. Cool. Sounds great. Sounds really good. Let's do it.
But are they still UFOs if we find out that they're actually conscious plasma beings? Then they're identified. We've identified everyone.
They
Guys,
are.
we solved it. Podcast over.
Then they get a podcast.
Oh, man, I can't wait to talk to the plasmas.
God's ghosts and us, the plasmas.
My goal is for every episode to contain at least 45 seconds of Mal freaking out and having to do
we haven't hit it. We haven't hit it unless Mel is like
out of her
drifting
chair
away from the camera.
Run around the room. I mean, not even the colossal baby squid did that, and that thing was so cute. Okay, anyway, utterly delightful.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Well,
that's
Time
it.
to wrap up, Tom.
Oh, it is. Thanks for
yours.
watching and listening and being. Thank you for participating in this 3D experiment. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
bye.
If you're new here, be sure to check out our Substack, where you can find a lot more cool stuff and share your own stories with us. Just head over to godsghostsufos.com or find the link in the description. Also, a quick reminder that no matter where you're listening, reviews really, really help other people find the show. So, hint, hint, please leave us one. All right, thanks again. See ya.